Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime. And welcome to the show, everybody. My name is Kevin McDonald. Sitting right over there is John Verico. And John Verico has brought a dramatically awesome, wonderful guest for us today. And he flies all over the country, does all kinds of things. He was even at the inauguration, and we can even talk about that. But I want John to have the honor of introducing this young man and telling us a little bit about him.
You know, the world is an amazing place, and we've run into some of the most amazing people. And so I belong to this group with Jim Britt, who's a motivational speaker and leadership coach and all that stuff. And he does a mastermind, and he brings in some of the top speakers in the world to chat with us. And we're always so inspired. Well, every once in a while, you know, there's just somebody who will just strike you. And this young man gets on, and he just blew us absolutely away with his story, his life story, and the powerful things that he does, and how he does not let anything hold him back. He is known as Superman. Actually, his mom called him that, right? He goes by Superman is for real. And may I introduce Mr. James Dixon. James, welcome, my friend.
Listen, first of all, John and Kevin, I'm honored to be here with you guys. Man, thank you for the introduction, but for the wealth of relationship as well.
Absolutely love it.
It is absolutely awesome to have you here because I don't know if you know this, but you're a bit of a thing. Did you know that?
No, not at all. Not at all.
You fly all over the country, and you're in
all over the world, man.
Yeah, you're in a car, and then you're in a plane, and then you're in a hotel room, and then you're in a hall room, and then you're in a car, and then you're in a anyway. You get all over the place. It's amazing. And can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you became so acclaimed at what you do?
Wow, this is amazing. Everyone talks about seeds, but planting seeds, hopes, goals, dreams, prayers, whatever it may be. But for me, my dreams, my seeds, my growth, my development didn't harvest for 48 years. My whole life, I was built struggling with it, trying to overcome being disabled, born with a disability, wheelchair bound, 34 surgeries until the age of 11. That's when I took my first steps, Kevin. And learning to walk didn't mean that was about taking steps. You see, the real steps that I was taking was when my grandmother used the time that I was unable to be anywhere else to learn to read early and to read to her. Her illiteracy led to my supremacy in that area. So I learned to read and be able to share stories. And whenever I would be reading to her, she was like, if you're going to do it, either do it with all your heart or don't start. And so for my whole life, it was always about give it your all. And then when my grandmother would proclaim over me, one day you will inspire people. The stuff you've gone through will turn you into someone. And then when she died, I felt like those were just empty words because that was my support system.
How old were you at that time when she passed?
Turning 24, I think, at the time.
Wow, so still young.
Yeah, but when that happened, it was the end of that unconditional love in my life. That one individual. Everyone needs someone to believe in you until you can believe in yourself. And for me, that was her. When Grandma passed, it was a struggle for me. I blamed God, I blamed life, I blamed myself. What could I have done if I'd only been here sooner, if I could have done this? What could I have bargained with to be able to get one more day? From the time I was 8, she had her first heart attack. And I remember going into the front of the house, John, and then saying this prayer. God, if you have to take years off my life and give him to Grandma, please do.
Wow.
I was 8. No instruction. In a wheelchair. That was my prayer. I so know I needed her, but I didn't realize that just because she was gone from my presence doesn't mean her presence wasn't still in me. And it took a while for that to take about purpose. 10 years ago, I began to share my story one-on-one with amputees, mostly veterans in hospitals, VA hospitals. I lost my leg and I got up and I did these things. You can too. And then I began to get more and more requests, and to the point where they actually gave me the title emissary. It's a representative that comes in and speaks on behalf of a king. They viewed it as a ministry for me to be able to talk to people. I had Mr. Francis Bell. He was a veteran from World War II who lost his leg, and they stopped allowing him to get the prosthetic in the process because his dialysis, they said, was no longer necessary because his heart was too weak.
Oh,
and his last words were, "I want to die whole, coach." And so we made sure we got him a leg. And his last words on earth were, "Thank you." Having moments where you got to fulfill someone's dream, destiny, for them to feel whole again, made me start making videos because I couldn't be everywhere else at the same time. The more I began to make these videos, and I got the moniker, the absolute motivator. And I would go in and I would change people's destinies by showing them that life isn't about the parts you lose. It's about the sum of who you become. Now that sounds highly inspirational, but when people are feeling suicidal and you're there, or when people are transitioning in life, you see, catchphrases don't work. And when they pass, and I'm the only family they have, I understand what they're going through because I felt like that when my grandmother passed. And so then I take their stories and I share it so the world will never forget. The more I began to do that, the more I got more platforms. My videos began to be viral. This weekend I was at the inauguration, and I spent some time talking with Conor McGregor, the UFC fighter. And it was unique because the timing of things, it was one of my videos I shared. He shared it, and it caused the growth of most of what I do. And I wanted him to know how one little small act in his life, but what I didn't know was how my words impacted his life at that time. And so forgive me for going on with that, but I wanted to say that 2 years ago, finally, the harvest, the seeds that were planted in my life as a child took off. I went full time from working in a factory to now I travel and I'm one of the highest paid speakers in the world, but I built it organically by serving other people.
Because your heart is in the right place.
absolutely. And it was your heart that struck me when I first heard you speak in that mastermind class with Jim Britt. And that's when I said, man, I've got to reach out to this man. I need to know him more. I need to be connected with him, and I need to bring him to Positive Talk Radio so that you can reach, even more people.
This is a privilege for me. You see, whatever it is that the tracks that you guys laid that brought you together led to my doorstep. And if I can do anything to impact somebody's life, I just know that when you go through something, you become something. For me, tragedy and loss, as hurtful as they were at the time, are the things that put me on this path. And I'm humbled by it.
Did you think 5-10 years ago that you'd be sitting in where you are and getting off an airplane from where you were and speaking at both of those places and leading the life that you have now? Did you have that in your DNA, or was this kind of a surprise? Here I am.
Yeah. Let me say this. It's a surprise. It's like walking down and discovering that Santa left gifts for you, right? I didn't know that I was going to get all these things. I just had hoped. But my hope was, and I got to tell you, the first time I got a chance to speak to a group, they only paid me $125, and the keynote speaker got 10,000. And the people responded to my message maybe 12 times higher in volume or responsiveness than the high paid keynote. And this is the first time I had spoken in publicly. It was then that the CEO came to me and said, "You're the best speaker I've ever heard." And I said, "Thank you." And this is right after both of us had spoken. And he said, "Would you come back and speak again?" I'm sure. And they said, "We're going to do better than at 125, right?" But I didn't do it for the money. I only did it to serve. And I viewed it as a privilege. And so I didn't have a stick or, for example, Kevin, throw out a word to me, any word. Just throw out a word.
Hope.
Hope is more than a symbol. Hope is a word that can also start with nothing. Out of absolutely nothing, when ex nihilo is all you feel like you have in your life, hope begins to give birth. Birth to something inside of you to become someone. You see, hope is a symbol. It's when you look at their chest and realize that it's not what's on the inside, but it's what comes out of the outside of that that turns the world around. Hope is about measurement of being more than yourself. It's turning every nope, every no, every denial, every negative into a yes, into a positive, unto hope. You see, whatever the word is, whatever thing someone throws out, I can speak on it because I had to speak and find words for an 80-year-old grandmother who had no one to read her mail or to read her Bible to her. And because I spent my whole life that way, any word, anytime, anywhere, I would speak on it because I spoke as if it might be the last words that she hears.
James, I want to say something for our audience to understand this. That word hope was not a plant. That was not preset. That was completely, entirely off the cuff. I want to make sure that people truly do understand that. We did not preset that.
No, yeah.
No.
It's
It was not a shill.
Anytime that I've gone somewhere, I've even, one of the biggest keynote messages, well, I think there's 195,000 views of the only keynote that I ever allowed someone to record and put online. That was this past August, and we put it on the YouTube channel. And when I put it on there, we had, no promotion or anything like that, but as 195,000 views organically just grew from me walking on stage. I asked the staff that was there, just to throw out words. And as I'm giving the speech, I had people just constantly, I had said to them, just throw out something. And as they did, the keynote that I gave came from whatever they were experiencing. And he's like, well, how do you do that? It is because I pull from the reservoir of my life. I live my life arrows out. What can I go out and conquer for others? Because when I look at my own life, I know that I am just a step away from sadness, a step away from depression. And so if I get internalizing, I'll cannibalize my own life. But when I think about others, I get a purpose, I get a reason, I realize that this is what I was born for.
And born you were, and you do
Oh,
an
thank
extraordinary job. I got to ask you, when you do that and somebody throws out a word, is it kind of like intuition for you that it just shows up and you know what to say?
No, I don't know. It would be like asking a math whiz a difficult question, and they just do it, and they don't know how they do it. They just do it. It was just, my grandmother would say something like, yeah, we might go to church, and she would say, "Hey, my grandson's going to get up and talk about, I don't know, resiliency. Yeah, tell him about that." And okay, and so I would just do it. And it became a thing. And then there might be a gathering with the family, and somebody would say, it's kind of like if a kid is somewhat funny or dances all the time, and then you get them in front of the family and you're like, hey, dance, and the kid doesn't want to, right? The one time you asked him to. Well, anyway, when my grandmother would say it, anytime she would call on me to ask, I saw it as a way to serve. So I did it. I was trying to mask her insecurity about reading and writing. And so I made sure that if she called on me, I was there. It was a protective thing. And so now it's a projection thing. When I get an opportunity to project hope and inspiration for others, then I do that.
That's why you are one of the highest paid speakers that is out there, because not only do you have something great to say, you've got a great presentation, a wonderful voice. It's almost hypnotic the way that you can control a room and to be in a room. I haven't heard you speak yet. I'm going to have to look up that email or that YouTube. And
yeah, you look at it, whatever you face must face you is the name of it. It's on Absolute Motivation. Watch it, Kevin, and just give me a text or email, something that tells me what you thought of it. But know that I'm going for an hour there, whatever it is that I'm, even the title of it and everything comes from the audience.
James, I'm sure you've heard of Toastmasters International, right?
I have.
Okay. Have you ever been a member?
No.
Okay. One of the things that happens in Toastmasters, which is, helping people with public speaking and leadership skills and all that stuff. But in a typical Toastmasters meeting, one of the things they do is called table topics. And so that is to get people to learn to think on their feet and respond to a question without any preparation whatsoever. And just watching people do that, some people just go into massive panic, because you're given a topic and speak on this for 1 to 2 minutes, and it can be devastating, but it can also be great fun. You would be such a master at that. That's what and it's funny because last night was actually our annual contest on I'm in a local Toastmasters club. I just stay in practice and love to work with mentoring of others as well. And so they had the international speech contest, so those prepared speeches, and then there was also the table topics competition, and that just reminded me. I'm like, oh yeah, boy, James would have been just killer on that. He had been the international champion.
I appreciate it. Let me say this: you have a great talent already. But one of the quickest things that I would change with you, when you pause, you take in breath. You're doing it from your lungs. Your messages would even be more powerful if you can speak not from your lungs, but from your diaphragm, so that there is no when you're talking. It's a small thing, but it's one of the things that as speakers pull from your diaphragm. It's from everything that's in you. It allows you to keep going longer, stronger, without interruption, and you pull from it, and you can keep going like a great singer or Whitney Houston would hold a note, and you're like, how do they hold a note so long? It's because of the diaphragm. Whereas it's so easy for us when you have a great sounding voice to get in the habit of speaking from your lungs. But it's the shortness of breath shows up in the message. And it becomes a distraction when you're on the mic and they hear you gasp for the air.
Oh, and you're right. I know that I do better when I'm standing up because I'm not hunched over. But the truth is, James, you left me breathless, man.
No, you're so kind. You're so kind.
It's remarkable. I got to ask you, because you've been doing this for 2 years, is that right?
Yeah, 2 years, just under 2 years.
And you were working in a factory before that?
$84,000 a year, working for General Motors as a team leader in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And to be here now, and this year I got to speak at GM, and to have the company pay me more for one speech than they paid me annually for 12 years. Isn't that something? And I only spoke for 15 minutes. But
that must have poetic justice is what I
Yeah,
Exactly what I
that
was
is.
thinking.
That is.
Exactly what I was saying. Well, you have such a strong message, my friend, and you have such a way of talking and thinking about things. I remember in one of our earlier conversations, I said to you, that I love helping people and I love serving, and if I can just make a difference for one person, that would be sufficient. And you just jumped down my throat and you said, no, man, one is not enough. Right? You
No,
need to make a difference for millions.
that's it. You see, John, it is the difference between when we say we can if I can just change one, it sounds so noble, but the truth is you can do that with looking in the mirror, change your own life, and that'd be enough. But there's more required when you have more talent. You see, Kevin, you're given a reach so that you can speak into lives, but you don't just speak to the audience. It doesn't matter if today we reach 400,000 people. That's not the number we really spoke to. It's the 400,000 that go in and touch their families that become millions. And it's the echo of what we've said that shows up then as encouragement, as a word, as a phrase, as a repeated quote, and that spreads beyond that. And so we have to reach more because more is expected of us. At the end of our lives, unfortunately, we won't know the true math of what we've done. Somewhere, someone will say that you had positive talk radio on your obituary, but that's not it. You see, you still have an echo that will be on the earth long after we've lived, and a digital footprint that our ancestors, that the chilled people that will view us as ancestors, will look back and be like, I know how he thought, I know how he felt, and I love his words, and be able to capture that wisdom again.
And hopefully they will then pick up the mantle and do it
That's
themselves.
right.
That's right.
That is it.
For so many people, because this message that you have, which is full of hope, love, caring, kindness, and also resiliency, all of those things, you utilize those platforms to help other people realize how great they can be.
That, I want to share something with you that came to mind. It was an impromptu message yesterday, but it's something that's been in my head for a while. I was watching National Geographic, like little videos on YouTube, and as I was watching those, they were talking about the Maasai lions and how majestic and how this one reigned all these 8 years, which is huge in the wild to reign. But then I thought back to the lion we saw at the Indianapolis Zoo. I took my son there, and as we were walking around, it's a huge lion, but it's got a feeding schedule. It walks around, it sleeps, it's very tame. But when I was looking at the wild one, it didn't look the same. And I was thinking about that with most of us, and I compare the lion in the zoo to the captive, diminished skill sets that we often will allow ourselves to have. We're still a beast, but we're way too tamed. What if we could tap into that side of us that is instinctual, to go after risk, to hunt down and eat something? You see, the one that is free can do so much more and be memorable. The one that is in the cage and captive can't even survive in the wild now if we did release it. But the wild one can't be held captive. What we have is like our talents. That which we are born with, if we go ahead and harness it and go after with everything, like it's what I do now. I am not just capitalizing on the moment. I've got a movie deal in the works. I already have the letter of intent from Angel Studios. I have. I'm honored with that. I was able to take my diary, turn it into a book, sell 144,000 copies of it just to my own audience, which made me a bestseller. I look at those things and I was like, it took time to build that because I had to leave the captive animal that was inside of General Motors that worked the line for security of 84,000. And to risk it all to try to trust my instincts that this was my time. And when I stepped out on it, 125 did not justify. There were times, brothers, that I thought that I was going to lose it all. If you don't mind, may I indulge you and just tell you a story about something that took place the moment I quit my job? Do I have your permission?
Oh, absolutely,
Do
absolutely.
we need to do the commercial first, Kevin?
Well, actually, since it's my show, I'm blowing through the commercials because you
Okay.
are. I'm mesmerized.
I know,
And
me too. I'm sitting going,
Okay.
oh, we probably were supposed to take a break
You're
here.
gonna
But
love this one. You're gonna love this one. I was I had been invited to come to one of those masterminds. You know, you get those, and they said this is going to be this life. It was the first time I had ever been invited. They were like, "This is where you get discovered. Great things that happen if you can make it. You get to come in as a guest at the low price of $5,000." And I took my last 5,000 and went. In fact, not only did I go, I risked it all. So I fly out, I go to attend for proximity, to be around people and to learn from them. But I had to sacrifice on some things. So I got a hotel room within budget. And the only place I could find rented the room out in half-hour increments. It was not a very high-end hotel. It was $29 for the full day, but you could get it for $5. You get a few minutes, $10. You get it. It was not the most clean place. I was afraid to sleep on those sheets. Let me just say, but that's where I was.
could
And
you put
even
the
with
quarter? Could you put the quarter in the bed to get it to vibrate?
yeah, no, that didn't even have that. I would tell you this: there was no turn down service. There was nothing else. In fact, one of the most funny things is there were people in the parking lot that could look in the room and look at me with the door closed, and I could see them. And I knew they could see me because I waved, and the guy was like, "Sup?" You know, I was like, "Yeah, this is not. I'm not getting undressed here." You know. So, but I didn't want the people there to know about my struggle. So I arrived at the event very early so that they wouldn't know. I get there and I sit down in a section that is while they're setting up. And it's the VIP, but I didn't know that I hadn't paid for that. I just sat down there. But by sitting there, I'm sitting around, I'm talking to guys like Jeff Hoffman and some other guys, and we began to talk and share. And they were like, "Hey, you got to get on stage and share some of your story, man." I was like, "Well, they didn't say that." So they talked to the guy who's running the event, and he gives me 2 minutes. So it pulls me up for 2 minutes. And as I get to the end of 2 minutes, they were like, "Keep going." And then a half hour later, they were like, "Keep going." And it changed all these things, my whole mindset, just being around. So I go back home, and the money that I should have paid my car note with, I used to go to the event. Wisdom or not, wasn't used. I probably should have been more responsible. But I get my first invitation to do a podcast. As I'm sitting there waiting on the podcast to start, a tow truck comes to take my car.
Oh no.
I sit in the back seat of the car, and so that he can't tow it. And I'm doing the interview while waving him off and saying, "Give me a moment, give me a moment." So as I'm doing the interview, I'm staying positive, but I'm doing this like, wait, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, one more minute. I'm doing that in the background. The guy takes the last woman, takes the car. Now I'm sitting here. I need to go to work. I risked it all, and maybe it wasn't worth it all. At least that's the thought that came into my mind. I just put everything in jeopardy to go to something that was selfish. That's how it felt. So I called the bank and I said, "Listen, here's why I did it. I was betting on me, and I just know that if you give me time." And they were like, "No, you have until 5 o'clock, or it goes to this amount that you owe, plus the tow fee, plus we close for the weekend. And I need my car to go to work." So I call an Uber and I go to the bank, and it's 15 minutes before the bank closes. As I'm on the way, I make a phone call to everyone I know, and I've never done this before, but I'm asking people if they could loan me the money to get things current. Everyone says no, and then finally I get one yes. So I'm like, finally. So I get to the bank and I go in. I'm talking to Miss Anita Hill. And she says, okay, sir, I will just need a payment. Your minimum we'll take is $1,200. No problem. I got a person who's going to take care of it. I call him, no answer. I call him again, no answer. Now it's 4:59. 5 o'clock they close. He said, sir, we tried. They call me back. And I'm like, finally. I said, man, here they are. And they're like, okay, I'm going to give you my American Express number. And they said, we don't take American Express. Time is up. I blew it. My children need to be able to get around. I need to be able to take care of my family. I need to go to work. And on a selfish pursuit, I gambled and lost. I feel guilty. I feel like I'm not measuring up as a man because I let my family down for the first time. I was living check to check and struggling, and now I'm behind because I gambled so much on me. What I felt on stage is different than what I'm feeling in this stage of moment. And so I put my head down and said, Miss Anita, I tried. And she said, we'll come back Monday. Well, just as she and I are talking, a guy named Miguel Patterson walks into the room. He says, is everything okay? And she said, yes, sir. I just need another minute, then I'll clock out. And she said, that's the credit union's president. And I said, okay. And he said, okay, sir, is there anything I can help with? And she says, we repossessed his car. Non-payment. And he's like, what's your name? And I said, James. He said, last name? He said, Dixon, James Dixon. Do you know a TJ Patterson? And I was like, yeah, I went to high school with him. And he goes, that was my brother. I was like, oh, yeah. So I'm bonding with the guy, but I don't know if this is going to, I'm hopeful. I wish this would work. But TJ and I weren't very close, but I knew him. So it seems like small talk. And he goes, do you remember going to have pizza a year ago? And I was like, yes, I ran into TJ at Pizza King. And he's like, yeah, he told me about it. So let me give you guys what happened at that Pizza King. As I'm sitting there with my sons having pizza, a guy gets up and walks over to me, and I don't recognize him, but he knows me. He said, hey, it's me, TJ. He doesn't look like he did when we were younger. He was the guy that got all the girls. He was the guy he had so many of the girls that there was none left. He was that guy. He was the coolest kid. I was never cool. Anyway, I had the high schooler in me was impressed that he even knew my name because I was the nerd and he was the cool kid. And he came over and spoke to me. Now, this is as a grown 48, 49-year-old man. He walks over and says, can I talk to you privately? I was like, absolutely. He's the cool kid. Doesn't matter that my high schooler showed up. And so as I was talking to him, I was like, hey, TJ, this is a dream conversation for the kid at the nerd table. And he goes, hey, I was wondering, could I get a kidney from you? And so I paused for a moment and I thought, that's quite a request. And I haven't seen you in 30 years. And the first thing you're asking for is a kidney. And I thought maybe he thought amputees are like spare parts, pick apart. You go get something from them and you can apply it to your own life or something. And finally, as he told me, he said, you don't smoke, you don't drink or anything, do you? I said, no. I said, I tell you what, I'll do it. If we're a match, I'll do it. I didn't think about it. I was like, absolutely, I'll do it. So he could make some calls. We set up a thing. We go to the doctor and all. And it just so happened that TJ passes away before we can move forward.
Oh, geez.
And that was the end of it. Well, now fast forward, I'm back in that office. And he said, when my brother was ill and no one in my family could do anything for him, you were willing. And he told me about it. Whatever it is that you owe on that car is paid. Thank you for being willing. It was there, gentlemen, that I learned that there's something deeper than money. That an act of kindness done a year and a half before that went further than American Express could, that went further than my money could. It was an act of service. It humbled me to know that he didn't just write off what I owed in back, but the $26,000 that remained on the Audi was gone.
Oh, wow.
The fact,
Go ahead.
the fact that when you're at your wit's end and you don't think your last can last, you have no idea when you bet on you what you can do. I left there in tears because I didn't merit it. It was unmerited favor. And then to go back home, be sharing that story with my family. And then I get a phone call asking me to speak to the attorney generals. And they were offering me $40,000 for a speech because they heard the 2-minute invitation I had been given on stage.
That is, and by the way, just keep on talking. I could just sit here and listen to you all day. And because that's an incredible story, and it is a thing of faith, because you went and you took that $5,000, and your family, I'm sure, at one point said, "What are you doing?" Or friends or whatever. You've got
Absolutely.
an $85,000
You
job.
absolutely
What the
do.
hell are you doing? And you knew what you were doing, and you had the faith and the trust that it was going to work out for your benefit, and you were rewarded for that.
Man, I live in constant state of gratitude. I do not deserve all the blessings and favor in my life, but it was spoken
Now,
over
see,
me.
that's a mindset you need to change right there.
Yeah.
You do deserve it, my friend.
Well, brother, I am a debtor. You see, when my grandmother was rearing me, she would always say, "You know why I'm raising you." It wasn't because my mom and dad didn't have the ability to raise me and abandon me only. It was because she was depositing something and expected a return on that payment. And I promised her, till my last breath, I will live up to being that Superman you saw in me. Because she said, "I'm not a cripple. You have kryptonite. And if you can ever get over your excuses, if you could ever just embrace, yes, I may be weird, odd, something's different about me, that uniqueness makes you special and memorable. So if you're feeling something, you're going through something, keep pressing on, because it's turning you into something that people can't deny."
You had a wonderful grandmother
Yeah.
with a wonderful message, and she was you had every right to idolize her, because she was that kind of person.
Yes.
And I wish I'd have met her. I
Yeah.
wish she could have been on my show.
Just thinking the same thing.
Man, you guys are make me cry here, but I'm going to tell you something. When they talked to me about doing a movie of my story, I decided I didn't want to tell the James Dixon story. I don't want to go from surgeries, wheelchair, poverty to success. I want to tell it this way. I want to talk about, the name of the movie will probably be A Leg Up. And it's about legacy, and it's about giving your family a hand up. And it'll start off with my grandmother growing up in the South without the ability to read and write, and about her hopes and dreams being put on pause, and about her giving birth to children and seeing them not fulfill it, and then being given a disabled baby. And everything she is, she pours into him. And when he becomes, it's because of what she planted.
You know, the
James,
cool.
what was her name?
My grandmother's name is Keziah.
Oh, beautiful name.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I will, And I'll tell you this, James, from my perspective, is your grandmother heard the entirety of her life to gain the experience and the wisdom that she could pass along to you to create the man that you are today. And think of the people that because of the seed she planted in you, the numbers of people that you are positively impacting in just 2 years.
Man,
Think about how
yeah.
much what you're going to be able to do in the next 20 or 25 to 30 years. It's mind-boggling. It really is. And and dang it, you deserve every bit of it.
I receive it. Brothers, I am honored to even be here with you. Things that we share, the moment that we're living here now, is an honor to me. I don't take it for granted, and I'm appreciative of it. Every time that I land in a new city, man, I speak somewhere, and you know how sometimes speakers will become reclusive, pull away from people. I have a tendency to stay until the last person wanted to talk with me, to hear them out, to share their stories, because I know what it means to them, but they don't know what it often means to us. Because there will come a day, every speaker, no matter how great you are, you can be forgotten. The last person to hear, no matter how great Zig was, no matter how great Brian Tracy has been, there comes a time where the popularity wanes. But what doesn't wane is when you can start a movement. A man dies, a movement doesn't. And that's why I pushed absolute motivation as the brand and not a man. There are kids now, if you say, who's Martin Luther King? In fact, they were asking people the question, do you think it's right that Martin Luther King didn't show up at the inauguration? And people are like, yeah, I was right. And I mean, literally, if you look this up, these are people like doing full interviews, black people, white people, you name it, adults who are like, yeah, I think, I can understand it was his day. Why would he go to the inauguration? And you're like, are you serious? And so I realize that people forget people, but they do not forget experiences. You see, duties die, people die, but experiences live.
And also the things that you implant in other people because of
That's
the
right.
wisdom that you have.
Yeah, the impact that you have is just
It's phenomenal. In thinking of your story, it's like, oh man, James has been doing this for his whole life. He's really good at it, but he's been doing it forever. And it's like, he's been doing it for 2 years. You've been touched, my friend, by something bigger than all of us. And I really appreciate everything that you've said today and are doing in your life.
I'm honored, brothers, because this is a calling. This has been, and think about this. This is also something that Kevin, John, you got to love this here. When you start off and you're like, man, I want a dream house, car, all those things, whatever they might be. What happens when you get it all? Here's what I learned. There was a time where $1 million, man, I only had $1 million. And then what you end up reaching and you're like, oh my, it didn't go as far as I thought it would. Right? That's hey.
See, that's why, James, I'm working on my second million, because the first million didn't work out. So I just started from scratch.
So look, the best thing that can happen is to lose the money again, because you have the skills. The skills don't go anywhere, but you can always go get it again. The skills are the hard part to get, the talent to develop, the knowledge. But I was sitting here, I was thinking, what really happens is that you get all the stuff and you find out the house, the stuff, the furniture. After the newness of that second goes off, you realize this stuff doesn't mean anything. Mm-hmm. And then it becomes empowered wealth. And so you start thinking about, how do I end sex trafficking of children? How do I do that? You start thinking about making a difference, and all your arrows go away from let me acquire to let me go get this, And I'm like, I'm on the mindset, I'm here to go take down and bring back what is needed for others now. Like, I want to know how it can serve the two of you. There's more than us doing this show together. I don't want this to be an episode that people watched. I want this to be the start of something beautiful that we built, and we touched others' lives, and that we went beyond a guest, and we started serving each other in a different way.
John?
I have no words. You've left the speaker speechless, James.
Well, my brother.
And James, I will tell you that my dream is to be able to create a large enough platform so that you can be heard by millions of people all at the same time throughout the world. And whatever that's going to take, that's my goal. That's my mission. It's not to make a lot of money personally. I don't really particularly give a crap. I want to make a difference, and I want to make it in a big way. And having people like you that we can talk to on a regular basis. I would love to talk to you like once a month, or when you're not on the road.
Yeah, listen, even when I'm on the road like I am today, I'm here with you, because it is again, I was invited to speak in Vegas. First time I got there. And I learned one quick lesson. I've grown accustomed to people coming up to me saying, "Can I take a picture with you?" I'm like, okay. But in Vegas, if someone comes up saying, "Hey, would you like to take a picture with me?" They mean you pay them for taking totally different. I was like, "Oh, these girls are fans. Yeah, okay, take a picture. Yeah, it's $40 for the photo on my phone that you." Wait a minute. Wait a minute. How did this happen? I didn't sign up for that. So anyway, after experiencing that, I speak there was a veterans event there. And there's a lady that was in the audience, a black lady, maybe about 70, and she had a hat in her hand, a baseball cap. I can't remember what logo was on the cap. I just remember having the cap. And the guy introduced him. His name is Kelly, and Kelly's a friend of mine. But Kelly does an introduction, and it's a horrible introduction, because you know how some people, they are so casual that they just say that they should have put thought into it. Well, that's Kelly. Kelly goes, "Well, he lost his leg," and he like tells how the movie finishes in your intro. Grandma did this, he tells my whole story in the intro. So now I've got to tell a whole. So as I'm walking up, what am I going to talk about? Because he just told
what's left.
Yeah. So I just went ahead and spoke about my whole bloodline. Since I was talking to veterans, I talked about the man in the arena. And I started off with my great-grandfather stepping into the arena, World War I, and wanting to serve and could not. And so it was all his desire. He could not. But he wanted to be the gladiator in the family. World War II, Sam Dixon, my grandfather, now he steps in the arena, but he comes back and he's altered, distant emotionally. And I didn't understand why. What he saw changed him, because he was just a boy. I talked about all my uncles and how each generation had someone step into the arena to represent the family. And then I was born, the first in my bloodline unable to serve. And the guilt I felt of not being able to be one of those that ended up on the mantle and having the 13 folds. And as I began to tell the story about the 13 folds, I used the last names of the 13 Gold Star families that were left in Afghanistan to create it so that reveille would be remembered, so that when any soldier says it and does it, they remember those names. But as I was doing it, I talked to the soldiers about them having the survivor's remorse and being suicidal, and why we needed them to stay, because somebody needed to stand in the arena for those of us who weren't qualified. And as I gave this message, I spoke from the heart. Man, the place is moved. The lady with the hat comes up to me and says, "Can I hug you?" I said, "Yeah." And she just cries. And she said, we bought tickets to come hear you. And my son took his life right before we got here. This was his hat. I wish he had been here. I wish he had heard you. I think he would have wanted to live different. He would have fought more. And so she gave me the hat to hold, and I gave it back to her, and I said, she reminded me of my grandmother so much. You see, her boy, she had poured everything into. But what he experienced traumatized him beyond her ability to love him out of it. And yet she still showed up on his behalf. And I have to tell you, experiences like that, where someone pours all they have and they go that extra mile for me to be there, is why I go the extra mile for them. I will never go on the stage and it's a performance. I never leave and ask, how was it? Because I'm not there to perform. I come to serve. I come to pour myself out empty. And even at the end of that day there in Vegas, when I left, I had to get on a plane and leave. I couldn't stay because emotionally I was empty. And that's where it comes back to why we need each other. And a mission as big as yours is, Kevin, when it's not about money, it's about empowered wealth and reaching the world with messages that matter. We need each other to keep pouring into each other, because when one of us falls off, millions fall off. We need that accountability. We need that brotherhood, sisterhood for every speaker to understand that your story is never part of theater. It's not about having the ability to read as if you're a newscaster, but to speak it from the heart to the heart, because that's what will last.
And you know, James, when you do that on stage and you do it from the heart, people know it. They can
Yeah,
Yeah,
feel
I
it.
can feel
they
it.
know the difference. Man, they know the difference.
Absolutely know the difference.
And I just want to say we're going to run out of time. I want to make sure this is under an hour so that I can make sure it gets on the Brushwood Media Network, because this is important stuff, and I can't thank you enough. And John, I can't thank you enough for hooking us up, because this is really important. And I just want everybody to know, doing what you do and getting on an airplane and then getting in a car and then going to the hotel and sitting in the hotel and then doing the speech and then getting into the car and going and that's a hard life. I used to travel for a living. It's not easy, and you have to be committed to it, and you do it with grace and love and caring and kindness, and that's I'm sitting here beside myself because it's just
James,
amazing.
James, you exude love, man.
Thank you, brother. And that's why we come to Positive Talk Radio with Kevin.
Exactly.
That's right. Tune in every chance you can. Kevin McDonald brings positive talk to your life, and I'm teasing. I'm just honored to be with you guys, man.
Well, and I got to tell you, this is one of those conversations that will resonate with people for a very long time. And then and because it's going to be up everywhere, it's not going anywhere. It's going to be on 100 different platforms, and everywhere. People will listen to this again and again because of the value with which you bring to it, and it's clear. And by the way, if you feel drawn to do something like this, and don't poo-poo it. I don't care if you're 49 or 50 or 35 or whatever. Don't poo-poo it. Follow your heart, follow your passion. There is a reason why you're feeling like you need to do this. And you may not be as successful as James. Not very many of us are, but who knows? And if you get a chance to meet James at one point, that's all you need.
You
So
definitely have to, if you're called to serve in no matter what way it is, serve. Serve. I mean, that's where I'm at,
What?
and that's why, because it's time. You know, I got involved with Jim Britt, who's one who introduced us, because I wrote a chapter in one of his compilation books, and I wrote a chapter about your legacy, and your legacy is not about your stuff. It's not about, whatever is left in your will or in your estate, for your children or any of that stuff. Your legacy is the impact you left on the world, and how you helped people, how you served people, how you made them feel.
Yeah. Be more, serve more.
And James, if I may just say, and to follow up on what John just said, this is a self-funded project. I'm using my inheritance so that my kids don't get that car.
That's it. Make them start over. Make
That's,
your children struggle well.
they're just going to waste it. And my dad, who passed 15 years ago, is exceedingly proud that I'm using his money to create this legacy for him. And I just want to make sure that gets out there. So it will continue. It must. It has to. I can't quit. It's like a bag of potato chips. I can't stop.
Can't eat just one, man.
No. And but James, is there anything else you'd like to leave us with before we have to say goodbye?
Okay, I'll say this quickly. For every one of you that is listening, you wonder, am I an outlier? Am I a unicorn? No. The difference is that I finally had enough of feeling empty. Working every day doing something I didn't love felt like a penalty. Perhaps you're feeling that way, but I want you to understand that it's not too late for you to go after it. Doesn't mean burn the bridges, burn the boats, and all those things. Do it with sense and common sense and progress. Give your all to what it is that you love, and you'll find that it will give you more than you bargained for. But with it, at every new level, there are new devils, but you'll be ready.
Love it.
Thank you, James. And John, thank you. Anything you'd like to add, John?
Like I said, I've been left speechless. James, you're so full of heart and inspiration, and make me feel like a slacker in comparison, my friend. I can only aspire to be able to serve as well as you.
You were doing it together. Thank you, Kevin. We'll keep it under an hour, and I love your heart, brother.
Thank you so much. And by the way, I'm speechless in Seattle. Hope everybody has an awesome day. And James and John, like the New Testament, thank you both for being here. And have a great day, everybody. Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's kevin@kmmedia.pro.
How about that, bro? Thank
you, gentlemen. That
Still
was
live.
live.
Still live.
Oh, we are.